What's going on, Sideboard Podcast family? We are back with another episode. I am your host, Caleb Williamson, and joining me today is Tim.
How's it going,
Tim,
everyone?
Good. Today we have a third person with us today. His name is Toby. He's from our Flesh and Blood team that we took to Nationals. Toby, give us a little intro about yourself.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Yeah, I met these guys not too long ago, maybe like 6 months ago when we started playing a little bit more Flesh and Blood. I had gotten into the game right as soon as Arc came out, and so I started getting into it, playing a little bit more, and our local scene was very heavy in Blitz, so we were playing a lot of Blitz at that time. But not until these guys came around did we start playing a lot more Constructed, which I've thoroughly enjoyed playing Constructed and trying to get more competitive and getting better. So my background in gaming is not too heavy. I did play a couple of games before this. I've dabbled in Magic and in Pokemon and in a couple other games. One of the heavier ones I got into was Star Wars Destiny, which was a TCG from Fantasy Flight. I went to a couple of regionals and a couple of bigger events for that, but Flesh and Blood is the first one that I've actually dove in and kind of really enjoyed kind of getting into the meta and getting into what other people are playing and kind of seeing what's what. And I just really like the lore and like what LSS is doing with the game, and and the community is really great too. I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about that here, about what happened at Nationals, but man, people are just good people, and I really enjoy it for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Toby, funny enough, the little tidbit you said about playing Classic Constructed once Tim and our crew started playing Flesh and Blood, I just found that out when you told us Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah,
it's wild.
Yeah, I didn't know that like literally no one else in our local community played Constructed at all.
Yeah, I think one of the big reasons is it's just a little scary for some people, and it takes more time. I mean, Blitz is a pretty quick game, and you can get, especially when you're doing it at locals on a weekend, Blitz just goes by real quick. And but finding other people that want to play at a higher level and want to play that way, it's just refreshing, and it actually gets you to understand the game more, and then it makes Blitz even easier, which is nice. But
yeah, definitely. Blitz, since like we started with Constructed, Blitz was like always the refresher format that was just kind of fun.
Yeah, 20 life is for fun.
or 15.
One shot potential.
Yeah.
Or in my case, 19. Gotta bring that KO around.
Baby Shrek.
All right, so today we brought Toby on to bring a third voice. He'll probably be around a few more times, as long as that's okay with you, Toby.
I'm good with that, man.
All right, so a couple topics for today. We're gonna be doing a Nationals 2021 recap. So first off, we'll just talk about a little bit what Nationals is. From there, we'll go into our performance with the team, and then some of our findings, and then lastly, we'll finish up just with some hopes and dreams for what people are calling Crucible 2. So to get right into it, for Nationals, Tim, did you want to go over kind of what Nationals is and how to qualify?
Yeah, so LSS, or Legend Story Studios, the company behind Flesh and Blood, took a really nice approach to their organized play and like professional system, which was really, really akin to the old Magic the Gathering system for pro play. There's a little spin on it though. We have branches in ours, so there's the Road to Nats that goes into Nationals, and then up into Worlds, as well as I think the callings. The callings I think are at the base. So we have callings, and then one branch has Road to Nationals, the other branch has Pro Quests, and then a step up from that is Nationals and the Pro Tour, and then those both feed back up into Worlds. So it's a really cool system they came up with, and we were on the Nationals side of that.
Yeah, so like Tim was saying, we went to Nationals, but interestingly enough, there's two ways to get there. Road to Nationals wins. I think it might be top 2
It was
or first place.
Top 4 got invites at any Road to Nationals.
And then the second way, which is the way we all qualified, was points.
Yeah. So they do this cool thing during the Road to Nationals season, which is a 90-day XP. And it's basically like the start of the Road to Nationals season up through a month before Nationals. That's your 90-day window. And all the XP you generate from events gets added up during that period. And once, what was it, the first day of October was the cutoff, which was a month before Nationals. They take a certain chunk of people based on XP and qualify them for Nationals. So we had like 200-ish people that qualified from direct invites from top 4s, and then I think it was like another 400 that qualified from experience.
Right.
So there was 600-ish total that qualified. Not that many showed up, but it's a cool like kind of checks and balances, or not really like a handout, but it's another way to qualify that feels good for like the grinders.
Yeah, absolutely. So just quick question for you, Toby.
Yeah.
So how was because I'm kind of new to the whole point system thing. How was it for you kind of grinding locals and armories and things like that? Go
ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So how was that, one? And then two, did you think you were going to get the qualification? And when you did, kind of how'd you feel?
Well, I mean, grinding locals, I mean, I just went to locals, and I tried during the Road to Nat season. I tried to hit as many as I could. I think we ended up going to 3 of them. I mean, our local one here in Fresno, Clovis, in California, and then we went one down south and one up north. But I didn't even remember that you could get to Nationals by grinding and getting points. And even then, I thought, when I first heard of that, or when I finally heard about it, I was like, oh, there's no way I'm going to make that many points. Like I play once a week, if that, because our locals, now we're doing 2 a week, right, at locals. But to get enough points, I'm like, oh man, it's going to take forever. But little did I know that some of the events that we've done, because we went to the Vegas calling, and those counted, and there was, some of them had like a lot more XP, and I know me and Tim both top 8'd at a road to RTN, and so those points counted towards that too, and it helped. So man, when I found out, I mean, you guys are the ones that told me. Somebody posted it in our chat, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And as soon as I heard that, I told my wife, and she's like, you're going. I was like, heck yeah, I am.
That is a great wife.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What's the saying? Happy wife, happy life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the feeling was pretty same for me coming into Flesh and Blood like a few months ago. You know, I mean, I had qualified for like Dragon Ball Nats a few times, but coming into this game, I just expected the first, half of the second half of this year just to kind of be getting up to speed. And I think Tim and I and our crew did that pretty quickly. And so just getting that invite notification from our local guys was like, yeah, I guess we did it.
Yeah.
It was pretty sweet. Tim, how did you take that news when you got it? at first?
So it's kind of funny because I think we talked about this during the trip. When JT, the owner of our local store, Ender's Games, when they started announcing people, he was just like searching everybody's names from our local community, and he started like naming off like both of you guys, another newer guy on our team, Aaron, and then another guy in our local community, Tom, who's like super grinded at the Vegas calling. And then it was just like nothing after that. And I was like, there's no way I literally topped an RTN. And then like 2 minutes later, he was like, oh, Tim's on there too. And I was like, we did it, boys.
That would have been funny if me, who didn't even top an RTN, made it and you didn't. I'd die.
Yeah.
That'd be funny.
Well, I mean, during that like couple minutes, I was like, maybe that one RTN that I missed when I went to go and visit a family, maybe that was like the points difference to make me not qualify. And I was just like, man, that feels really bad. But then we got the good news.
Yeah.
No, it felt really good also because like you and I came into the game like 2 or 3 weeks into the national season. Like it started the beginning of July, and I think like we had one armory before our local RTN.
Oh yeah.
And that armory was like literally the first week we were playing.
Yeah.
And the armory was Blitz.
No, that one was CC.
Oh, was it CC? Oh, okay.
He was preparing us for the RTN.
Oh, that's right.
So yeah, that felt really good that we like came in late into the RTN season and we're still able to qualify.
Yeah, it was overall a good feeling.
Definitely.
Okay, so moving forward, we wanted to just go over the format and kind of how it changed, sort of like how normal events would go. Toby, do you want to cover that real quick for us and just give us an overview of that?
Yeah, so the format was split up into 3 days, and day one consisted of 3 rounds of draft. So you started off with draft, and we got to sit in pods of 8 and draft first ed Arya. And then once you did that, you went into Classic Constructed for 5 rounds. And in day one, you had to win 4 to make day 2. And then you repeated day 2. Day 2 is the same as day 1. You do another 3 rounds of draft, and then into 5 of Classic Constructed. And then at that point, to make day 3, you have to make top 8. So they come down hard with the hammer on that one. So you'd have to do pretty well. I think it was X and 3 or X and 4 that made day 3. So and there was a couple of people that went 12 and 4 and still didn't make it through. So yeah, it's it's a pretty harsh 3 days if you make it all the way to the top. So
yeah, so the first thing that I remember when we were discussing the event, because, you know, coming from card games, I'm sure everyone knows like Swiss math, I guess you could call it, hypergeometric calculator, whatever you want to use to kind of figure out if you're going to make top cut. And I was under the impression that day 1 Swiss was separate from day 2 Swiss, and that it was 8 rounds, and then top 8 of the 8 rounds. So you had to go like X and 1 in day 2 to make top 8. We quickly asked a judge, and that was wrong. And it was actually just 16 rounds of Swiss total between day 1 and 2. They just cut out the bottom half if you're not doing well, and basically force you to do side events or the calling for day 2. And so that like threw everything off, because 16 rounds is more rounds than necessary to have one undefeated for 420-ish players. And so my brain was like stuttering for a second, trying to figure out like, wait, what? And anyways, it was interesting seeing the top 8 records for my own personal sort of math, because first place in Swiss was 14-2. So
Yeah.
that means there wasn't any undefeateds.
Yeah, it was. Let me tell you, day 2 was wild. Day 1, I don't think that we were prepared for that.
Definitely not. I'm just going to say right now, I've never drafted in this game at all, ever. So the whole, pick one, pack one thing was pretty new to me. And then like playing only in your pod, also new. I figured we'd play like everyone and just be random, but no, you play in your pod, which was weird. And just the whole process was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, and like I've drafted a lot in the past with like Magic, and I don't know if it was just this set or maybe like this game in general, but drafting feels so different. Like arguably more difficult and like complex. Part of it could have been the set, because like there's only 3 heroes for this set, so
I think that's what it was.
You're having to fight for things a lot harder.
And the pod 8 people.
Right. Yeah. And then I mean, also for me, I mean, I only drafted one time before we went, right? And it's just coming from a background where I didn't do too much drafting in other games. And even when we played Destiny, the draft was a lot different. Understanding how to read and like catch signals and stuff like that is very difficult when there's so many options to go off of in the very beginning, whether you go ice or you go earth or you go lightning or whatever it might be, and then understanding how to read. And I mean, watching it back, watching the content that Channel Fireball put out, I was like, oh, that's how you do it.
Yeah, and I just want to add in real quick, like I'm so glad that Channel Fireball is doing what they're doing, and I know a good part of it with like adding in following draft and like following a player through the draft and things like that is largely because of some of the commentary crew. I think it's great. It's great for the game. It's definitely going to help grow not just like the player base, but like grow the quality of players as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was a really fun first 3 rounds for the event. Yeah. So moving forward, I think I mentioned we had about 420 players for nationals. The cap was at 600 from invites, but not everyone was able to attend due to difficulties. And there were some discrepancies between some of our numbers that we got from LSS / the event breakdown. So somewhere around 420 players for the event, which is, I think, pretty good. And so moving on to our next point, we just wanted to go over our performance a little bit and how we did as players, the 3 of us. So I'll just start that one off.
Why are you laughing over there, Tim?
We'll get to that.
It was the plan the whole time, boys.
Yep. So going into the event, I'm like urging everyone 2 weeks before the event, like lock in on a deck. Toby says he's on Bolton, I'm on Prism, and Tim's like, I don't know.
No. Hold on. I said, and I quote, I'm just gonna sleeve up all 3 rune blades and just pick one.
Whatever.
And I brought all 3 rune blades with me.
That's a testament to the fact that all 3 rune blades are basically the same. Anyways.
That is true. Yes.
They are
close. Viz is on the fringe.
They're just different archetypes, but the same cards. Anyways, so my tournament results, playing Prism, I was playing the Dozer tank list because I have no time to make my own lists, and I'm better player than deck builder. I scrubbed out super hard, went 0-3. I went 1-2 in the draft. I could have went 2-1, made a small mistake, and then for constructed, I lost 2 more times, and so I had 3 losses, and so I just called it there and hung out the rest of the day. Or no, actually, I played out day 1. Yeah, I played out day 1 and went 3-5 total, so I couldn't make day 2.
Yeah, because you were on a winning in for the last 2 rounds, I remember.
Yeah, my winning in round was so the second to last round was Dash. I won, and then the last round I needed to win as well was Saber Bolton. I Arclight Sentineled his Saber combo turn, but just didn't have enough damage to kill him, and he ended up whittling me down.
That was that was a triple Lumina, you said, right?
Yeah, triple Lumina, and I had the Arclight in Arsenal. Ended up drawing 1 in hand as well, so there was no way it was going off. I've played against Bolton a zillion times. I know what it does. So, but yeah, he just had threat. They call it threat density. So that deck has a lot higher threat density, and so every turn he's putting out more damage than I am. And some turns I draw all auras, which are just no blocks. So it's just like, oh, I'm gonna just take all this. That's fun, yay!
Right.
So anyways, day 1, Nats ended up dropping. No point in playing it out, so I entered the calling. Day 2, same deck, went against 2 Briars, 0-2 drop because X2 didn't make it unless you win out, but the strength of schedule for losing the first 2 rounds is super low. And then the third day we played ProQuest, which was sealed, I believe, because it's the opposite of the calling format. And I 0-2 dropped that as well. So we got a whole bunch of L's, and yeah.
Hey, we did have one major W though, and that was dinner Friday night.
That's true. Part of the reason we go to these events is for the food.
That was real good.
Yeah.
Was that Bahama Breeze? Where did we go?
Yeah, I think that's what it was
really
called.
good. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, shout out to Tim's aunt and uncle for taking us out to dinner. It was super great.
Yeah, that place was awesome. It was funny, like while we played out the second half of day 1, they were literally just like looking for places to go to dinner.
That was great.
That was so cool. Yeah. They were invested too. They were just asking us how we were doing and like thumbs up, thumbs down.
They caught on real quick.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. Okay, so Toby, how did you do? Just tell us about your event and
Yeah, so I ended up taking the mono red wins deck, the Briar deck.
Not Bolton? What?
No, I ended up not doing Bolton because I mean, we didn't have enough time to test, right? So because we were kind of like going back and forth. I mean, I had played Bolton through the whole RTN season, and it did well for me. But seeing some of the calling from Cincinnati, and then also just the UK Nats, that there was no Boltons in sight, and just kind of thinking through turns and kind of seeing what would happen if I played Bolton against the Briar deck. And I said, well, I would get destroyed. And that was my thought process going in, right? So I decided to leave it at home. I didn't even bring it because I would have been tempted to play it, right? But yeah, so I did that. And so for the draft, I went 1-2 in the draft. I ended up drafting Oldham, and my first loss, right? It was a draw, and we ended up at just going to time, which, I mean, Oldham versus Oldham, that's kind of what happens, right? And then my second one, I got the win, which was against another Oldham, just kind of understanding how the match went. My third one, and this is, I can say without like any doubt, every single game that I played at whether it was CC or Blitz, my third game in draft, was the one where there's no way I was going to win. Like that one, I just got I was playing against Lightning Ice Lexi, and it was overflex, dominate 13.
Bro.
And it's like, what do you do? here's my rusted buckler, like block 1 and then 1 from hand, right? And it's like, if you don't have any D reacts or anything, then you're kind of screwed. So but all the other
tell your opponent to stop playing CC in a draft tournament.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then after that, I went into CC, and I actually played my first round. I played the mirror, ended up winning that one. And then my second game, I actually played against the Saber Bolton, the same one you did, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And so since knowing how to play against Saber Bolton, I kind of understood what he was doing. And I guess, to think about going back, Saber Bolton might have been a good idea, just because he almost took me down, and he only got a single Lumina turn. He didn't even get the triple or the double. And that was, maybe he didn't know what I was doing, or he didn't know what the deck was doing, and I was able just to pump out so much damage that he had to block. And so he couldn't get off certain things, but I ended up taking that one. So as soon as I won, I only needed to win one more. Because I was 3-2 at that point. And so then I think my next match was another mirror, and I ended up taking that one. So at that point, I had 2 more games left, and I was 4-2. So I was able to make day 2 at that point. And my next 2 games were super grindy. One against a Prism, who knew, which we talked about this, me and Caleb, because Caleb's a Prism player. Who the heck plays pummels in Prism? And then all of a sudden it's like CNC pummel, and well, there goes my whole turn. I got wrecked by that.
Wait, pause real quick. The 2 cards I said I would have done so much better if I had in my deck. CNC pummel. Right? It's hard because you don't think about playing around that. Like, I play around that in Bravo all day long because I know that's what they're trying to do, right? But you don't think about that in Prism.
Bravo
can block, so
yeah.
Oh, you mean against Bravo?
No, against Bravo. Like, I know that if a CNC comes out, I'm like,
it's getting pummeled.
Yeah, it's getting pummeled.
Better
I'm
block
gonna watch
for
out
10.
For yeah. And so I lost that one by 1 life, right? Like, he was at 1, I was at 1, and he just had a little bit more damage, and it got through, right? And then same thing happened to me against the Bravo, which was my last match. So it's 4-3 and going up against another a Bravo player. And man, the Lex or the Briar list doesn't whiff very often. But when I whiffed like hard, right? We were going back and forth. I felt in control, and then all of a sudden I drew up my hand, all non-attacks, and it felt so bad. Come to find out that I told Tim and the guys, and he's like, why didn't you just make a rune chant and swing with the sword? I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I could have done that, and that could have saved me from what came next, which was he had the nuts, and he just dominates Spinal Crush.
Oh.
And that just switched everything, right? I had nothing. He had the absolute everything that he needed, right? And even with that, like, it was back and forth. I ended at 0, he ended at 2, and like, that's kind of how it went. Day 2, I got smacked around. 0-3 in draft, 0-2 in the second 2 ones, and then I just dropped. Just kind of took that as it went, and didn't do the calling, but I went and did the ProQuest, and ProQuest, same thing. I pulled some fire stuff, but against a mirror, it's whoever can outrace, and I got outraced. So but it was a blast, man, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Tim, how did you do in the calling or the nationals?
All right, so there's a reason that Toby made a joke earlier saying I planned for it. I had a feeling that I was gonna bomb draft on day 1. Like, I drafted a relatively decent Briar deck. Like, I read my pod well. I just got kind of high rolled, especially by a Lexi player. that 2 turns in a row just went double red overflex, dominate arrow. And I died.
Yeah.
So I 0-3'd the draft. But I was like kind of boned, but I was like, it's all right. I planned for this. Like, exact words. I was really confident in my deck. Like, I've been playing nothing but Runeblade since the beginning. So like even little things like drawing a bad hand, like what Toby said, it's like second nature for me to just make a rune chant and then either swing with the sword or just pass and keep a rune chant for next turn. I never had one of those situations in day 1. We did at the end of day 2. But yeah, CC I 5-0'd. It was really funny. I went 0-3 in draft and then 5-0 in CC. I was feeling pretty good. I had to start against Bravo, which is like the least fun matchup for me, no matter who I'm playing. And then I played
dreams about Bravo and his nightmares.
I played like 3 or 4 mirrors after that, but they were all like either Earth or hybrid Briars. They weren't on like the 0 cost generic like Cheerios or Red Deck Wins Briar.
We're calling it mono red.
Yeah, I definitely felt in control of those games. Some of them, the life totals looked close, but like the games themselves didn't feel close. Because like sometimes you just take a fat hit because your hand just puts out more, and I ended up doing that a lot. So yeah, we cruised through CC in day 1. Going into day 2, I was like, all right, I just have to not bomb draft. My pod had 7 people in it, including Aaron, which was kind of weird. I pivoted into Lexi like a couple cards into pack 2 because I was noticing like from one side Guardian was super open, from the other side Runeblade was super open, but they were getting cut the opposite ways and nobody was taking Lexi stuff, and I was like, I've seen like 4 red overflexes. I'm not gonna let someone do that to me again. So I pivoted and it paid off like super well. I got high rolled both of the first 2 rounds and then got paired up against Aaron and had like the most disgusting play of all time to kill him. It was pretty sweet. It involved a flash freeze after hooding a ball lightning from Arsenal back to my hand.
Nice.
Yeah. He almost got me with the ice defense react. And then I remembered that bows are instant speed.
Nice.
So the ice defense react on Oldham makes you top deck a card from your hand. The last card in my hand was my arrow.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about an actual card, and I was like, there isn't an ice defense react to him. And then you said Oldham, and I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, so like the second that I was like, wait a second, and then activated Shiver, he was like, dang it, I thought you'd not see that. And I was like, I almost didn't.
That's funny.
Like, you just think of the instant arrow as the Voltaire one. I don't really think of Shiver as being that one.
Well, I don't play like anything but Runeblade, so all of my stuff is not at instant speed. Like, hey, literally nothing.
You have creepers now. Yeah,
that's true. I have not given them enough love yet.
Come on.
But yeah, so we had a sick play. So we got our 1 draft win out of 5 or 6 draft rounds. And then CC started out well, won my first 2. And then we hit the wall of 3 really good players for the last 3 rounds. The first one was actually the guy in charge of like sales and pricing for Star City Games, T the Bow. Super cool guy, super nice. Really, really close game. Like came down to one or 2 points of life. And then round 15 was against Joe Colin, which I saw that and I was like, oh man, this is hard mode. Like this is my winning in. Like to stay in contention for top 64, I have to win this round and the next one. Because at this point I was X and 6. And we did the math, and like some X6s would make 64 for prizing.
And Joe's the one that went 7-1 day one.
Yeah, Joe was almost he was almost undefeated day one, and then just like got manhandled in day 2 from what he was saying. Yeah, we got to like I think I was like 17 or 18 life, and he was at like sub 6, and I came in with like a nimbleism to snatch, and I think I was gonna snapdragon it, but he overblocked so that I think he blocked 9, and I was like, wow. All right, well, that sucks. Definitely not getting a draw trigger now. And then he was taking blood debt damage because it was towards the end of the game. His husk was there. So I think he was down to like 2 life on the end of that turn maybe. And I drew into a full non-attack hand and was just like, oh no, not like this. I took a little bit of damage. I think I kept like a Sting of Sorcery or a Plunder Run to like make a rune chant and swing sword, and it didn't matter because I drew into another hand that just did nothing after that. So lost. He was out literally 1 life. Super close game, but Joe's a great guy, awesome opponent. I do remember the last guy. It was I think Ryan Goldfinger was his name. It was a guy who lost to Kano on stream in day 2. Joe and Ryan were both on chain, and I felt confident in the matchup. It just came down to literally the same situation as what happened with Joe. We were at the very end of the game. I drew non-attacks and just couldn't keep enough pressure to force him to use his hand. So it got away from me. I ended up 8-8 because of the last 3 rounds, which is kind of a bummer because I was 8-5 going into those last 3. So like I was in a pretty good spot. Just got unlucky. I mean, it happens, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so out of all of us, Tim did the best. Like he said, ended up 8-8. I think it was a good experience though.
It definitely was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this whole time, even like what I was telling you guys of the testing beforehand, like I learned so much from the testing period till like when we finished of how to become a better player. And even when you were talking about the road to Nats that we had in our hometown, I'm like, man, that guy that played then, I sucked. Like I was a scrub, like bad. And if I could go back, I would be like, oh, and not just the way that I play, but my mentality of how to play, right? And how to like go up against big opponents and how to go up against people that might be better than you or whatever. And just having that mentality of you know the game and you know what you're doing, and you just got to stick to the game plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to say that, like, some percentage of doing well is just knowing the rules, and I think that's very prevalent in this game.
Yeah, I think another thing, I don't remember which one of you guys I was talking to on our trip back, but we were talking about just like having confidence, or what was the word I used? Posturing yourself.
Oh yeah.
Even if you're playing against like a big name, or they put down their hero and you're like, this is like a 50-50 or worse matchup, like you're unfavored, a lot of the times you get extra percentage points in the matchup just from being confident. And like,
I think we were chatting about that because I had talked about how not having enough practice with Briar of missing a lot of the triggers and potentially playing too fast, especially the embodiment triggers, not so much the lightning ones, not the embodiment of Earth, not so much the lightning ones, because the lightning ones, it's like, hey, those are good, like let's keep those. But it's just as good. I mean, the other side, I mean, that could have saved me in specifically in that Prism match that I talked about that was 1-1. The previous turn I had missed 2 embodiments, which would have let me block with something else and not lost my whole hand, right? And so but yeah, that's when we were talking about posturing and making sure that you don't let missing a trigger kind of like defeat you, or let your opponent see that it defeats you, or that it makes you you get tilted, right?
Yeah, a big part of playing competitively is just like not letting your opponent see your emotions, whether they're like positive or negative.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So moving forward, I think we should move on to our next topic. We could sit here all day talking about our matches and things, but let's just get into a little bit of the findings from nationals. I have a few points here for what we're calling Mono Red Briar, Ice Lexi, and then kind of like where are the veteran decks, right? So Toby, can you take over the Mono Red Briar, just kind of explain the predicament between the deck and probably actually why so many people played it at nationals?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest reasons that so many people played it is because it did well. Both, like the first time we saw like a little bit about Briar was at the Cincinnati one, right, with Patrick's list, and his was Brendan Patrick from Arsenal Pass. His was more on the Earth side, but it did similar things. But then when this one came out at the UK Nats, everyone could see that it was just very aggro and very resource, like you don't need resources for it, right? You can do still heavy amounts of damage with a 2-card hand, 3-card hand, if you sequence it right. And I think that was another reason, is that it's not inherently difficult to play. It does very similar things that Chain wants to do with going wide, but Chain just takes the sequencing to another level of understanding what you're doing. And if you're a veteran Chain player, I mean, you can outplay that mono red deck, but the mono red deck is just, it's so much easier to play. And I think that was one of the big reasons. And also outside of equipment, the deck is not expensive. I mean, I guess the CNCs, if you put them in there, and most of the time the CNCs are sideboard, right? But it's not a very expensive deck. And it's pretty straightforward. Come to find out that the non-straightforward part is remembering triggers, whether it's your tunic or your embodiments or any of the embodiments. But yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons so many people took it, is because it could do so much damage with such little cards. And also, I mean, the amount of draw that you can get from the deck with playing 9 plunder runs and the snatches and just being able to draw cards off of Electrify from Arsenal, that you just get so much value from the deck that other decks can't do, and they can't catch up, and you're allowed to take hits and then just come back for 6 over what they did to you. And at one point somebody's going to have to block out. right? And most of the time it's not you. So I think that's one of the main reasons that they did it, and it does what Chains wants to do more consistently. But again, Chain, if you're playing Chain, then and you know what you're doing, you can work around it. And Chain has what did we decide? I think 12 extra life with just their equipment. So it could be a toss up depending on the player, but because I had talked to Tim, because Tim is the Runeblade guy, right? And so I had talked to you about potentially going Chain, and I tried it a couple times, and after 5 games my brain hurt. I'm like, no, I can't do this right now. Like, I need to either go Bolton or find something else. And then this list came out. I was like, done. Like, let's go here, because it's a little bit more up my alley for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I just want to throw something in about that. Because like, if you look at the representation of the field and like conversion rates and all that, Briar was extremely dominant. Like Toby mentioned, the deck was really cheap in comparison to everything else, but also the learning curve and the ease of play for that deck, it was so low that it just made it like a really safe pick. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is, in those types of events, the high level invite only type of events, you don't want to like do anything too risky. You want to take something that's safe, that has a good chance of putting you into top cut. And like, I know we're seeing a lot of stuff in the community right now about it, but it's different from like callings and RTNs and stuff, where like you can afford to take that kind of chance. But if you're at Nats, like you're playing to win.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
But I know we talked about that too, because you're saying like making sure that you bring something that's safe, and not going too crazy. But for some people it worked out. I mean, that Lexi made top 4, right? But I know you talked to the guy. Who was it?
Isaac from Attack Action. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I don't know how much practice he got with it, but
like not much at all.
Then he must be an amazing player, because that's hard to do, right? For being so consistent. But going back to the Briar thing, it's not unbeatable. Right, it's not something.
Definitely not.
Right, and again, a lot of people see it, and I know we were having conversations with other people about how prevalent it was. But I mean, if you have 35% of the field being Bolton, they're gonna make it to the top. I mean, it's just it's just a war of attrition. It's gonna happen. And so I think having Briar be such heavily seen, they're gonna float to the top. And then it also is just a very consistent aggro deck that can just mow you down. So
one thing I want to touch on before we move on to the next point here is, in formats like these where you have a definitive, this is kind of the deck you play if you just want to win, I think it's a great breeding ground for players to find an identity within a deck and become known for that deck, as long as the deck is not the like 35% deck, but like other decks. And I think that's actually really good for games, is having players that are just like, this is the Bolton guy, this is the so and so.
Yeah, I mean, and that did happen during like the RTN season, and also like during some of the calling seasons, like Jimmy Lee from I think he's on the Kitchen Table TCG team. He's known as like the Bolton guy, and that's the guy that I would ask questions to, because like that's who he played, that's who you want an RTN with, and it's just like bouncing ideas off of him. And like is it Tyler, the one that made top 8 here and then won the RTN down south and won Vegas? He was Prism. I know he didn't play Prism this time, but that's what he was known for, is playing playing the tank version of Prism, and it does kind of set you apart. Doesn't pigeonhole you at all, but it just like you get to be known as the guy that is good with that deck for sure.
Yeah, I think it's really a unique aspect of games. Okay, so we saw about 35% of the mono red Briar taking control of the Nationals format, but in top 8 and in top 4 we had a major upset, 2 major upsets actually, with a deck that was, funny enough, Toby had said to me and our team that could have, if maybe it was more tested or represented, taken the whole event, which I after the results and watching the matches, I pretty much agree with. But that's Ice Lexi. And like Tim was saying, we had Isaac in the top cut with Ice Lexi. And I actually just finished watching their deck profile on that deck, which was interesting. Did you guys watch that video at all?
I haven't seen that. I didn't even know it dropped yet.
Yeah, I watched
channel.
most of it. I think it came out yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, so it was just really interesting. The reason I brought it up was because like they went over basically every card and like the purpose and that sort of thing for each matchup, and I thought it was pretty cool, just the concept behind the deck. And because one of my favorite things about card games is archetypes and like definitive control, aggro, tempo, OTK, that sort of a thing. And when they start to mesh together, I really just don't enjoy playing that much because it becomes a battle of efficiency. But currently in this game, we're having like hard control in the Ice Lexi form and the Oldhim and the Bravos, and then you got aggro with Chain, which is kind of like an uphill aggro, and then you got Briar, just different kinds of aggro. Prism can be a couple different types of decks. And anyways, my point is that I think it was really cool that we saw Ice Lexi just plow through the field of Briars. I think he said that in their deck profile he played
I think it was like 7 Briars, wasn't it?
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Of the 10 constructed matches, it was 7 Briars. And I'm pretty sure he said he like beat all of them. So unfortunately, the deck does have some downsides, which we saw in the final match of Isaac's run, where he played 3 of a kind and didn't draw any attacks. But I think that's not the only deck with that issue. Like you guys were saying with Briar, you ran into that as well.
Yeah,
a few times.
I mean, and even with like my Bolton deck, I mean, you draw no charge cards, and then it's like, what do? Like, it's kind of what you want. That's what he wants to do, and if you can't do it, then it doesn't just happen to one, right?
Yeah.
It's literally variance. I mean, it's how math works.
I think something important to note, like on that topic, is like kind of why Runeblade has like a get out of jail free card with those kind of hands, with Grasp of the Arknights. Like, even if you draw a bad hand, you can just pitch and make a rune chant and swing with your weapon, and then you get to reload your hand back up,
which is still between 3 and 4 damage based on which weapon you're playing.
Yeah, so like at the very least, like you're pitching a blue card and you're probably at least getting the 1 arcane damage in from the rune chant. Which, right, like with a lot of other heroes, if you draw like an unplayable hand, you don't really have equipment to like get you out of it and still like progress the game state.
Right.
So maybe we'll see equipment that does stuff like that for other classes in the future.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that in a couple points here under crew too, but I think you're right about that. Yeah, so just to wrap up the Ice Lexi, I think like 3 or 4 of us ended up building it at the event, buying all the stuff, which is pretty sweet. But I just think I hope that it gets a little more representation here in the future for any events coming up. So
I know I'm building something spicy for the skirmish blitz events.
You mean
But
KO?
oh no, I haven't even told you guys about it yet.
I thought you
I
told me
built-
already. No,
Oh,
you
I built
told
the.
me.
Oh no, I built the Oldham one. No, this
Yeah.
is the Ice Lexi one that I'm building.
Oh, good, because the Oldham one was not good.
It's already built too. We'll see.
I'm probably just gonna play OTK Viz since our skirmish is Blitz.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll just win it with Dash again, like I did the one armory.
I think
random win.
I think your Kano has a better chance.
I mean, I beat everyone else.
I
The random
literally
mid-range
died
Dash.
on like my turn 1
You know,
And
Against the
that's-
Kano
in
or
like our
against-
armory right before leaving for Nats. It was one of the guys from Hanford. Like I was going first, and I think it was like literally the first attack I played. He was like, "Might as well do it now," and then literally just killed me. I think he like put out like 24 damage or something like that with his opening hand, and I was just like, "That's disgusting,"
Yikes.
but also super high rolly.
Very. I mean, that's Blitz, right? So I mean, outside of Kadachi, whatever.
Our
I mean,
game lasted like literally 2 minutes.
it
which
gives you
is
some
fine,
time to. It gives you some time to get something to drink and go to the bathroom. You'll be all right.
Yeah, it was still super
That's
cool,
funny.
like seeing that happen.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not the type of player that's gonna get salty over getting like mega high rolled. Like if it's something that's super cool like that, even though I got wrecked, I'm still gonna be excited because like that was sick.
Oh yeah. And that's why when I play KO, I let you guys roll my dice, just so I can sting just a little bit more.
Nice. I'm gonna start bringing in my own gambler's gloves.
Oh, dude, one of the guys from Hanford that played, I put down the KO and he's like, hold on, and he pulls out gambler's gloves out of his
Yes.
thing, and I'm like, what in the world?
Yes,
Who brings that to a local?
God.
that's
He's
awesome.
like, hey, I play that all the time. He's like, I have it in my bag.
Sweet.
That's funny. Okay, so 2 more topics to go. One last topic for the finding section. Just a quick thought from each of us on where like the older decks went. Like, where's Dorinthia? Where's Reiner? Where's Katsu? You know, Toby, if you want to go first, just give us a brief theory.
I mean, Bravo's prevalent, right? And he's there. I think there was a good amount of Dorinthias. Dorinthia is very, if you've played against it and you know what it's doing, it's pretty straightforward, right? It's not doing anything crazy. It's not doing anything weird. It just tries to go above you. And if you know that, you'll understand how to block, right? But even with the prevalence of mono red, all right, so I'm not going to block, so you don't get any reprise. All right, let's go. Let's see who hits harder. Like, go ahead and I'll block out your second attack or your second attack might not even happen because you don't have go again. And so that's probably one of the reasons that there wasn't a lot of the older characters, because they don't put out as much damage. And Bravo can block. Right, at the same time, he can choose when, and then he has on hit effects. Right, the only other character that has crazy on hit effects is Azalea, which nobody plays. Right, because there's a better one. There's a better Azalea now. So, and Katsu, I mean, Katsu, Chain, and Briar will say, hit me as much as you want, draw as many cards as you want. I'm gonna do more damage. And I think once we talk a little bit about Crew 2.0, that's where things are going to change. But I was surprised not to see as many Dash, because I thought Dash would do well. It might have some like harder matchups like against the Bravos, but against some of the other decks, I thought it could do pretty well into like the prisms and into some of the other decks that were rolling around. But yeah, Bolton, not so much. I mean, we played a couple of them, but Rhinar, never really seen a lot, even though we have a pretty good Rhinar player in our group. But it's just not as consistent as it can be. And honestly, as playing Briar, yeah, Intimidate my hand. I want to keep it. Like, I want these cards. Like, if you're not gonna let me block, I'm just gonna hit you hard again. Like, you can intimidate my whole hand. This isn't Blitz where intimidating my whole hand will kill me. So I'm fine, you know. And so yeah, it's just those interactions from the older heroes not being able to pump out as much damage, or people just didn't have enough time to tech those to change the original archetype that had already been set from the last seasons. Yeah, I think that's what ended up happening with those older characters.
Yeah, I agree. Tim, what do you think?
Okay, so I actually did see Akatsu during my Swiss rounds of CC, which I was like kind of surprised, but I had like played against Katsu enough during the RTN season that I was like, the only card I care about blocking is Mugenshi Release. That was the only card the entire matchup that I blocked, other than like the second Kadachi later into the game. Like, as long as he doesn't get the trigger on Mugenshi, I don't really care what happens, because on average my hands are better, right? So I think with like the breakout of Briar and it just being a better aggro deck than Katsu, it's probably why we didn't see as much of Katsu running around.
It would have been interesting to see if there, because I'm assuming most of those Katsus were the aggro Katsu, to see how the Flick Flack Katsu would have done, because I mean, you're blocking that second attack for even more and the third attack for even more if you play another one, you know, and it could have been interesting.
Potentially.
Yeah.
It felt like Control Katsu is such a gamble now, because decks can just surprise you and go really tall. That like the Flick Flack line is kind of dangerous. You're like rolling the dice when you play a Flick Flack. But yeah, so I did see a Katsu. It was kind of weird. I wasn't really expecting to see any. Prism was looking like the deck to beat up until UK Nats. I think once we started seeing the rise of Briar with like Cincy into UK Nats, I think that pushed Prism out a little bit, just enough to like still be prevalent enough to gatekeep some of the harder counters for Briar, like Ice Lexi and things like that. So like we had a pretty good amount of Prism at Nats, but they were just kind of getting run over by Briar and keeping the decks that were good into Briar away from Briar. So it was like a really interesting thing going on. Bravo still prevalent, still super good. I played against a regular Bravo and against a Shield Bravo. Shield Bravo is weird and super annoying when they have like 2 Null Rune equipments and then go Forged to War like 3 turns in a row, and now their Null Rune equipment also physical blocks. That was kind of spiky. Pretty sweet though. And then like you guys were saying, like Brute as a class is just risky. Like it was really good into Prism. But then when like Briar happened, Prism didn't look like such a like landslide choice anymore, and I think that's probably why we didn't see as much Brute show up. But I don't know. I will agree with you though. I was kind of surprised there wasn't that much dash.
Yeah. I think, I mean, you guys did a great job covering all the points I would have covered, but I think the two things I want to highlight about kind of where the older heroes aren't and why they're not performing super great is because two reasons. One, consistency. I think Briar is just the most consistent at dealing damage outside of Chain once they ramp up into the mid game / late game, putting out anywhere between 15 and 20 something damage on an average turn. And then the second reason, which I think is a slight issue, is just the card quality difference between class cards right now and running all the generic M's in a deck, and R's and other S's and things like that, where the generic cards are generically good and the class cards have more specific uses, which creates a higher ceiling but not a very high floor. And I think Briar just has a super high floor, which is good for consistency.
And
Yeah.
she can block.
I
And she can block
definitely think
once those embodiments come out.
she was the most consistent deck going into the weekend.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone can disagree with that, honestly.
Agreed.
I agree.
All right, so now for the fun part. What do you guys want to see in the
Wizard.
It'd be
So a
cool to
hero?
get new heroes, but I'm pretty sure they're not doing that because they just said they're supporting all of the. I don't know if they said classes or if they said heroes.
I think they said class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
think they
like
said
that makes a
class.
big difference on like
Oh yeah, because then you gotta add
speculating.
like light and dark and lightning and all that if you do hero.
Yeah.
But if you do class,
I think they're gonna do some of that anyways. I think they're doing elements and then light and dark and then some other cards because I think it's a pretty big set, like 4.
oh, so just like
Yeah,
generic shadow cards, not so much like Runeblade Shadow or.
No, I think they're giving the past 2 sets support, and then it'll trickle down into the other heroes as well. But
interesting.
Past 2 sets is my theory. Counterpoint to what Tim said about no new heroes, there is talk about making the Blitz heroes into CC heroes.
Okay, like giving like KO and Benji and all that. That'd be cool.
And Datadol.
Seeing how they like balance those up into CC.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Hmm.
Also, a new Shiana or something like that.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll make merchant class cards for Cavdane.
Yeah, it's just a 0 cost non-attack action with Gogan that tutors any specialization to your hand.
That would be
For
for
free.
Shiana.
Yeah, for Shiana. That would be for Shiana.
Oh,
Cavdane is
never mind.
the merchant that can only play generic cards because there's no merchant cards in the game.
Why are you talking about Briar again?
No, I think it'd be cool to like explore the merchant class though.
Yeah, they would have to. They can just do gold stuff.
Yeah, because there's those the cards that care about like gold, silver, and copper. But those are
Right,
that's
warrior.
a warrior thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, because of Kasai.
still
Yeah.
a cool system.
I don't know. I
Um,
think it's an interesting design space that they can.
I mean,
They
they
can
can bring
explore and
in
get
bring in new
creative.
heroes if they want. I mean, they can bring in a new class if they want. I mean, that's what they did with regular crew, right? I mean, they brought in the merchant, they brought in the shapeshifter. There could be space for an alchemist. There could be a space for a bard. There could be a space for other things that they want to do.
Yeah, I think that stuff will come in regular sets though, not supplemental.
Well,
I mean, that's where the merchant came in. There's no merchant anywhere else.
yes, Toby's saying that crew was a supplemental set, and that's
Right.
where those heroes came in.
Yeah.
I guess it's possible.
I'm just wondering. I think me and Caleb. Well, I think all three of us were talking about if they're going to do what they did in Crew 1, where they gave us all M's for like equipment, and if they're going to do that again, which would be pretty spicy, it'd be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like theory crafting one equipment for like the past two set heroes. Like what could they use that would make it interesting?
I think maybe like elemental as the typing, so then it's playable in all three of the Tails heroes. You could do
What if
maybe
it said
boots, because that's the only slot that didn't get a legendary or a majestic.
Yeah, what if it was something like you just pop it, say it blocks for 1 or 2, you pop it, bottom deck a card from your hand, and then search your deck. You'd have to discard, I guess. So discard a card and then search your deck for any element card, put it in your hand, so that way it's like helping you fuse.
Oh, interesting.
You
That
can also
seems like an
search
effect
out.
they'd put on like a helmet.
You could also search out the pulses.
Yeah, I saw something on one of the pages a couple days ago, and it was really interesting that like broke down the general effects that each armor slot kind of gives. So like helmets have card advantage. Chess pieces generally like give you resources. Boots have been like some sort of go again type effect, or action points, I think was what it said. And then gloves
Usually like
or
buffs
like
attacks.
utility. Yeah, like gloves had to do with your attacks.
Yeah.
So I thought about it afterwards, and I was like, they're not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like you have shock charmers that buff something, right? You have Goliath gauntlets that buff something. Cracker jacks, the
Grasp
they
of
all
the
do
Arc-Knights makes
they
your
all
enchant.
kind of buff something. Yeah, Metacarpus nodes, all those kind of
Buffs
things.
your arcane. So it's kind of interesting. Maybe it'd be cool if they like broke out of that mold. Like once I read that, I was like, that's true. Like they have a generic thing that slot does, and they just find a different way to do that thing, which is cool. Right. But I think it'd be cool to like play around with that mold a little bit.
Yeah.
Did Crew 1 gave us rare weapons, right?
Yeah.
Like the sabers,
Yeah, they were rares.
the mech pistol.
Were they rares or were they M's?
They're rares.
They're rares.
Rares?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sabers, claws, pistol,
Reaping blade.
and I think that was about it.
Talishard.
Oh yeah,
We don't talk
Talishar.
about that one. We don't talk about that one.
And then Redliner.
Right, and then the other wizard one, whatever it was that nobody uses.
We don't talk about that one either.
Yeah.
It says pay 2, deal 2 arcane.
Nice.
Yeah, and Briar gets a pay 1, deal 4.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Oh, I
Anyways,
think
I'm
it'd be
excited.
definitely
go
would
ahead.
be cool to get like
Yeah.
a general elemental equipment, like support tails, and then maybe like aesthetically dig deeper into the classes, like for the artwork at least. So like ninja, they could have something like a little more samurai like on one of their armor pieces. I don't know.
Yeah. And I'm excited. I mean, I love playing Bolton, and I just think, and Bolton's in an okay spot. Bolton's not. I mean, most people put him at B tier, right? And I would agree. I mean, B tier, maybe lower A tier, if you know what you're doing. He's gonna get some support. So I don't know what that could be. More charge cards, not charge cards, things that give go again, and whatever it might be, just to kind of give him more consistency. I don't know. It could be really cool.
Yeah.
Just give him Halo of Illumination that says charge instead of put a card in soul.
I've got a question on this topic.
That would make so much. That would make so much sense.
What are the classes or heroes that you guys are looking forward to the most for getting something out of the new supplemental set? Like, what do you think has the most hype for it?
Like, which one do I think is going to be like the best after it?
Not necessarily. It's like which hero or class do you think has the most like excitedness or hype for like what they could potentially get?
I think I have two, and Caleb probably knows which one I'm talking about, but I think Azalea is going to do something. I think she'll get some good stuff. I mean, she got Seek and Destroy. She just needs a little bit of a push. She needs a little bit of a thing.
Got Seek and Destroy.
Yeah, nobody runs that in Lexi right now.
It's in the deck.
It's literally in the list.
Maybe. But also, I think. I mean, Mech is so good, and they've only had a little bit of support.
Had one hero.
I mean, yeah, you know what I mean? And it's like, I think more boost cards, I don't know, man. I think another item, a different weapon that could just like blow Dash out the water. Like, hey, like now Dash is like the thing to beat.
I think what Dash could use really is because like they got Purifier out of Crew, which was super, super good for the deck for Pistol Dash. I think what they really could use is like some sort of like way to generate card advantage, because they have plenty of go again, plenty of attacks and stuff like that, but they just don't draw. Like they literally just don't draw. I mean, her specialization tutors items out of the deck, but like I don't know.
It's different than putting cards in your hand.
You're tutoring something that you're gonna play, or it doesn't block.
Yeah, it's also rough when like an Arg Smash like rolls up all your items.
Yeah, that's hard.
Speaking of Arg Smash, I think there's a lot of hype for Levia for the supplemental set.
Hey, if you play against somebody that knows what they're doing with Levia, you're gonna get rocked.
The word on the street for Brute is another claw type thing, so that way they can run barraging, or wait, no, what's it called? The claw card.
Blood Rush Bellows.
Yeah, they can run Bellows and like something that does almost the same thing.
Interesting.
Or something similar, so that way it's consistent. I think building off of Crucible 1 would be really cool, and just furthering those kind of archetypes.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool.
New ones.
Also, if they made another specialization for everyone.
Yeah, because especially the ELE heroes, they only got one.
Yeah.
Yep. Same. It'd also be nice for the Shadow heroes to have another one, because both of theirs are legendary. So like maybe one that's a little more like tuned down, but it's not legendary, so you can have 3 copies.
Shadow Reaping and Eclipse are pretty good.
Eclipse is not that great anymore.
Okay, but it was.
It was.
Shadow
Most
Reaping
of the time I pitched it. Shadow Reaping or Soul Reaping is great.
Is really good. Yeah.
Whatever.
But like bring
back Seeds, but it costs 1.
That's fine. Like for Levia, Not Doomsday, her other one. I think it's Soul Harvest.
Yep.
I just literally always just pitch that card when I draw it.
Unless you see a Bolton with the big old soul, and then you just kill it.
You mean Prism?
Both
Yeah,
of them.
Prism.
What do you mean?
Yeah, Prism never really has that big of a soul to begin
No,
with.
You will not
Bolton's
be
is
making shields.
Bolton's is gigantic.
It can be.
It
You're right.
is.
Yeah, I think Levia's got some hype. Obviously, people are excited to see what happens with Wizards.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think those two have like the most hype. I know people are exclusively like not excited to see Runeblade cards.
No more Rune Blades.
There's enough.
I'm interested just to see what they do with them. Like what direction they go. Do they go like in the direction more towards what Viserai wants to do? Or like the chain stuff, or the intention they had with Briar? Because like the intention and right now Briar are not the same thing.
Right. I think they might go down the route of kind of what, like, because the Runeblade cards in Tales right now that kind of fit everybody is like Sing a Sorcery, right? Something that gives every attack something, you know? And maybe they go down that route of saying like, hey, we're going to give all the Runeblades something that can continue it, or because I mean most of them, even Viz attacks more than once a turn, right? And most of the time it's like a one big shot with mixed damage, but he could go wide if he wanted to. I mean, you got some instances of go again with meet and greets and stuff like that, but
yeah, the Viserais that showed up Nats weekend were all like aggro or mid-range Viz, where their plan was just like Mauve Skies, 1 or 2 attacks, Rosetta Thorn, pass.
Right.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. Okay, well, before we close, just a couple of shout outs to the team, Sideboard Gaming. We recently added a bunch of members to our roster, and so you guys will be seeing them as we produce more content, go to more events here in the future. And then just a couple of things for our housekeeping. If you guys haven't checked us out on YouTube, we'd love for you to like and subscribe. It would help us out just getting out there a little more. I know in Dragon Ball we're pretty big, but in Flesh and Blood we're kind of newer to the scene, so we appreciate anything you can do for us. We do have a Patreon if you'd like to support us monetarily. We offer some services on there. And then just a huge thank you to our sponsor, Ender's Games in Clovis. They help us with all kinds of things, with events and just a place to play weekly and that sort of thing. So huge shout out to them over at Ender's Games. Anything else I forgot, Tim?
We have our TCG player link. If you guys want to order any singles or sealed product for whatever game, definitely go through that link. It does give us a tiny kickback, but it helps us out a whole bunch and costs you nothing extra. I think the only other thing is keep your eyes out. We're going to be doing an interview with a player from another team that topped the Pro Quest from this weekend. That'll probably be like a next week thing. But yeah, keep your guys' eyes out for that. Let us know any feedback you guys have or ideas for future content.
All right. Well, with that said, this is Sideboard Gaming. Check it out.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.